Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hélène Soret. I'm one of the co-founder of inoqo, and welcome to today's webinar. The webinar for today will be engaging customers for a greener future, learnings from the inoqo Sustainable Food app. So in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, inoqo was born with a mission to empower millions of consumers like you, like me, to make informed decisions aligned with their values. In a world full of misinformation, greenwashing, and lack of transparency, we aim to simplify the process of choosing products that were good for the planet and for your health. So today, we will share with you the key learnings that we've gathered over 3 years, how to engage your customer on sustainability matters. You will learn the strategies that work, and Markus will share with you some concrete examples how you can apply those strategies in your daily business. So let's start maybe with a quick introduction of me and Markus. Markus, you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, I'm Markus. I'm co-founder and CEO of inoqo. So I started my career as an entrepreneur back in 2006, where I founded my first startup, Suvu, meanwhile a global market leader for AI digital sales assistants that has raised more than 200 million in venture capital. And yeah, after transitioning out of Suvu, started getting active as an impact investor. So I'm investing into startups in the climate, biodiversity, and pollution space. And obviously also decided to found my second startup, baby, together with my co-founders in the climate and biodiversity space with inoqo.
Thank you. And yes, my name is Hélène Soret. I've already mentioned this. I started my career in very big corporations such as Adidas and Gucci, always working on international projects all over the world. I had the chance to live in many countries such as Switzerland, China, and Italy, but I was missing a little bit a sense of purpose. So that's why in 2019, I decided to do a master in sustainability from Cambridge University. And right after that, together with my co-founder, we founded inoqo, which is actually what we're going to talk about. So today, I'm very excited to talk about the very beginning of our story together, Markus, and with the 4 other co-founders, how it started, why we started it, and what you can learn from it. So maybe just before we go to the next slide and before we go on the topic, you can always ask a question during the webinar. Just drop your question and we will answer them at the end of our time together. So let's go. Next slide, please. Maybe Markus, to start, before we start, can you maybe tell us why is the learning of the inoqo app relevant in the context of food retailers? Because today we're completely focused on B2B. So why would we organize a meeting about learnings from the B2C app and how to engage with your customer if today our main customers are food retailers?
Yeah, very good question. So, I mean, the reason why we founded inoqo and the vision behind inoqo basically didn't change at all. So, as you know, basically our food consumption is responsible for 70% of biodiversity loss on land. It has a huge impact on climate. So actually a third of the global greenhouse gas emissions arise from the way how we produce and consume our food and much more. And initially we really founded inoqo with the idea of empowering consumers directly through a consumer app that helps them to transition to more sustainable products. And we were always waiting, fun fact, we were always waiting to have legal departments of the retailers reaching out to us and basically suing us for making transparent, you know, that their assortment today isn't that 100% sustainable yet. So we were really surprised when, you know, at a certain point into our journey, the retailers reached out to us and said, hey, we really love what you do. So they reached out with their sustainability teams, with the marketing teams, and not with the legal teams as expected. And basically, we realized that they have the same challenge that we wanted to address with the consumer app. And what we did with the consumer app is, and we will go a bit deeper now in the next couple of minutes, we allowed consumers across Austria to scan their grocery receipt at the point of sale and then get basically an analysis of how climate friendly their purchase was, how climate friendly individual product purchases were, and then basically use content, gamification, challenges to help them to transition to a more sustainable diet. And interestingly, this is exactly one of the 4 big levers that the grocery retailers have. Yeah, and we will see that on the next slide. That you as a grocery retailer basically have if you want to achieve your goal to lower your scope 3 emissions. Because as a grocery retailer, you can basically work on those 4 levers. So you can improve the environmental impact of your private label brands, work on improving the impact of your own private label brand products. You can create create an incentive that basically leads your third-party brand producers to start lowering the impact of their products on nature. And topic number 4 is to obviously implement actions to reduce food waste. But the lever number 3 is the one that we actually also really targeted with this consumer app when we got started initially, which is all about engaging with consumers and help them on their journey towards a more sustainable and healthy consumption. Because let's face it, you can really try to improve the impact of your private label and A-brand products like crazy, but if consumers continue to eat the massive amount of animal-based products that we are consuming today, you will never ever be able to reach net zero. So it has to be also consumer behavior change also has to be part of the role. And although our business model changed now from B2C to B2B, we have drawn very important learnings from building up and running this app successfully, which we now also want to share with you, because it gives you a good feeling of what you as a retailer can actually do with the data that we are providing you through your own apps, through your own online shops, through your email campaigns, and how you can really leverage that data to engage with your consumers and help them on that transition towards a more sustainable and healthy diet.
Perfect introduction. Thank you. So let's go to the next slide and really see how the app looks like. So you remember we were always starting with setting up your profile. So the consumer could choose what values were important to him or to her. So if maybe some people were caring about animals, they would tick the animal welfare choice. Some people, they wanted to be exclusively vegan or vegetarian, and they could really set up their own profile in the app. Why is that important, Markus, to have your own profile? How did you use those data?
So I think it basically served two purposes. One is to really connect in the brain of our user why she should basically scan her receipt. You need to imagine to basically use that app, you really had to scan the grocery receipts at the point of sale, which is quite an effort, right? It's not just swiping your credit card or your debit card, but you really had to actually take a picture of the receipt. And what we wanted to really have here as part of that onboarding experience to really create that connection between the values that people and consumers want to live up to, and what the app is going to provide them to, so that they kind of understand, okay, this app is going to help me, like in this case, to protect the rainforest, to help animal, to ensure that my purchase behavior has a positive influence on animal welfare, and to contribute to CO2 reduction. So that was one effect. But the other effect was that basically we wanted to use that data to then really personalize the experience towards the consumer. So one thing that we have learned is that different consumers care about different aspects of sustainability. There might be some who are more interested in carbon, but others are more interested in social aspects of their consumptions, or others are very much into animal welfare. And if you really use these topics consumers are already interested today and use them as a hook to get them involved, get them engaged, you can then in small little steps introduce other concepts which are maybe not on top of their mind, and help them to really transition to an overall more sustainable kind of consumption behavior that goes beyond those areas which they already care about today.
Exactly. And then I, as the head of marketing, also personalized content is so important. So there is nothing more frustrating than receiving content about meat if you're a vegetarian. So we also really use those priorities and values to really provide the right content at the right person. So
including the challenges, right?
Including the challenge. The entire content was tailored to, as you said, the experience was tailored to the profile of our users. So once they have set up their profile, on the next slide, we can see that the second step was to upload and analyze their receipt. So you've touched base a little bit on this, but maybe you can explain the little trick that we incorporated in the app in order for them to keep scanning, because scanning can be a little bit annoying, as you say. It's always something, you have to take your phone out, you have to make a picture. So we implemented a little trick to make sure they would continue. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So one realization that we had is that as it's quite an effort, as Justin mentioned, to pick out your phone right at the cashier or at home, and then basically scan your grocery receipt. We realized that our users need some kind of an instant reward for making that effort, right? And the instant reward in this case was that within seconds, we assessed the impact of that specific purchase. So from a technical perspective, what we did is basically there was an OCR software recognizing the products on the grocery receipts, mapping them to the actual product data that we have about that product. And then we could kind of link that to the product carbon footprint of this product. And in this case, we also then used it to basically calculate the carbon or climate score of that purchase. So we basically compared the calories of that purchase with the actual carbon emissions cost by that purchase. And then we basically were able to show that consumer whether she won a 50, 100 or 200% voucher right away. So the idea is that whenever you upload basically a grocery receipt, you increase your chances to win. But the more sustainable your purchase was, the more money you could win back. So every month we basically had one or multiple drawings. Some were also sponsored by brands or by large corporates who had their own teams on our app. And basically consumers understood, okay, whenever I scan a receipt, I can basically win money back. And the more sustainable that purchase was, the more I can buy back overall. So at the end of the month, we basically draw users, and then we looked at all their recipes which they had scanned, receipts which they had scanned, and they were then weighted either with 50, 100 or 200%, depending on whether they were less climate friendly, average, or very climate friendly. And that was kind of served as an immediate dopamine hit, basically, where consumers could see, oh, cool, yeah, I managed to just basically go for a very sustainable purchase this time. And obviously that started the process of thinking, what can I do to basically also scan in a more sustainable way next time?
I think we can say it worked very well, because even though we are putting very minimal effort into the app in the last 6 months, we're focusing on much bigger projects. We were very, very happy to see that we still had hundreds of people scanning in the app and being interested into this quick dopamine hit and see how sustainable their grocery were. So it definitely, I think, one of the success points of the app.
Yeah, this really surprised me totally that, our users stayed so loyal over such a long amount of time, despite the fact that we didn't, publish content, didn't do challenges anymore. And yeah, it was really, really cool to see, and a very, very good surprise. And I think that's also exciting learning for you as a grocery retailer, because it basically shows that people are really interested in that, but that you can also use very, light form of incentives to basically encourage that consumers are interested in that. I mean, in a retail context, you could do the same thing, but then say, hey, one user once a month, one customer will basically win 50 to 200% of their total grocery shopping with us, depending on, how sustainable the purchases were. And that already is, again, an incentive for consumers to dive a bit deeper into the impact of the products they're purchasing, but it also can create loyalty amongst your customers because obviously they want to participate in or increase their chances to win their purchases back.
Okay, so one of the key learning I think for here is to maybe include a kind of incentive, also to have sticky users as we had. You need to have a kind of an incentive, but it's definitely not enough. On the next slide, we're going to see that we implemented quite a playful approach. So we had a different way of introducing gamification and a very soft nudging towards our users, which was also very, very successful. So maybe let's start with the first one, with the climate score. I mean, you touched based on this. Maybe you can very briefly repeat what was the raffle about.
Exactly, yeah. So here we can basically see the screen that you received after basically scanning your grocery receipt, where at the bottom you have a summary, or you basically find all the products that you have purchased, and for each product you see the product carbon footprint, and you also see like whether it's rather climate friendly or not so climate friendly. But on top of the screen you basically see where your how your purchase all performed. So in this case, this consumer, this user scanned a grocery receipt that was very climate friendly, had a very positive climate score. So in this case, this user won a 200% ticket. And with this 200% ticket, if that user is drawn, the user would receive basically a cashback on, double dip cashback basically on this kind of purchase. This was a very, very cool feature. Obviously, you need to keep in mind, if you want to do that in a grocery retail setting, your customers don't have to scan their grocery receipts because you anyway have already have their purchasing data connected to your loyalty card, and you basically can just build that in as a standard feature into your app. And whenever somebody swipes their loyalty card or basically scans their app, their QR code in the app, they will automatically you can automatically push something like that to them through a push notification, and you can then congratulate them for very climate friendly purchases. Obviously, you should not tell them, hey, you again basically ruined the planet and kind of work with negative messages, but you can definitely pick those purchases where your customers accidentally purchased in a very climate friendly way, and allow them to basically see, oh, there is this capability, and why didn't I get a reward or a praise this time? And then get them interested in the concept and let them dive deeper step by step.
That's great. We also see on the screen that we try to nudge the people with climate warrior. So exactly as you say, enhancing this positive communication. Do you want also to talk about the second screen? So this is exactly where you see the amount.
Yeah. So here you one concept was that you could basically then reach higher tiers. So basically, the more challenges you took, and the better results you basically, or the more climate friendly your purchases were, you could reach higher levels, and basically based on those levels, you could win back more and more money every month. So at the starting point where you you just scanned your first receipt, you could only, the concept was you could only win back, let's say, a small, let's say €100, but the further you take measures to lower the impact of your purchases, the higher the total amount of money that you could actually get back in the end. And I think that's a very nice concept.
Customizable for grocery retailers. So this is really depending on your CRM and benefits program. It's like a loyalty program. So the more you scan the receipt, except it's a kind of sustainability linked loyalty program. You can really climb the ladder and being a climate warrior, or and have just more more
Yeah,
coupon
yeah.
or
Yeah, and you could obviously also link it with points, instead of incentivizing users with purchasing vouchers, you could also kind of award them special points from your loyalty program. So definitely different options that you can take here.
So we've touched base quickly, and you mentioned that already about the role of positive communication and how important is it to really praise your customer all the time. On the next slide, we're gonna deep dive a little bit more on this. So, yes, why, first of all, is it important? I mean, is it really important if someone used to buy pork and they start to buy organic pork? Is that really better? Do you make really a big praise, or you still have some effort to do? So why do you think that play a big role?
I think one thing that we learned is that you really need to, you need to start engaging with consumers wherever they are today, right? So if you ask somebody who is buying meat 7 times a week in massive amounts to go vegan right away, they're out. They just won't listen and just will kind of, drop out the process. So I think what's really important is to not overwhelm users, but to offer them small, tiny little steps to basically, purchase in a more climate-friendly way. So if somebody is buying a lot of conventional pork products, then at least, switching to organic options is already a step into the right direction. Then later you can basically go further and give them challenges like, hey, try to buy a plant-based meat alternative, twice this month, and we will reward you for that. But it all has to be in the right dosage without overwhelming customers. That's why really this kind of personalization is key, not only from the perspective of what are the values and the interests of a user, but also from the perspective of where are they standing on this journey today? Because we are all on a journey towards more sustainable, consumption, and every one of us is in a different floor of the building, and chances will be much higher if we can take one floor at a time, than asking us to move from the first floor into the 27th floor right away.
And we have seen that also on social media, that being overwhelmingly negative doesn't work. People don't like to see the doom scenario. People prefer either science and based fact or a bit more of positive communication. And we tried to also adopt this tone in the app when we were displaying some scientific article, or for example, here on the Impact Insight, we are not making it overly positive, but we try to keep this optimistic tone, but also try to educate consumer. Can you say something about the Impact Insight and maybe the role of it? Why is it even important if you just have a score?
Yeah, no, I love our impact insights, and this is also a feature that we provide to our grocery retail and brand customers. So what we do still today is obviously to provide kind of a rating on how climate friendly a certain product is. So it's from dark green A to dark red E. We provide like a score per product, but we also provide the product carbon footprint of the products. And basically, that's a value that's very interesting for experts and who are kind of, very much into the topic. But what for consumers is actually even more interesting, or at least very important to then start thinking about, why is that the case, is that we provide them with actionable insights on why a certain product in this case is good from a climate perspective, or why it's maybe not so good from a climate perspective. So here, a consumer who buys beef would find an explanation why beef has such a high product carbon footprint, or here you would find an explanation why even plant-based products sometimes can have a very high footprint, and also recommendations on what they can do to basically lower the impact by, for example, buying different alternatives. And in this case, for the app, actually, we had those not only for climate, but also for other impact dimensions like animal welfare or like environment, biodiversity. And I think that's really important to offer such kind of impact insights if you want your customers to to change their behavior. Because just by showing them a label and just by showing them a value, that's might speak to some consumers, but you can certainly reach and target much more customers if you really provide them the answer why certain things are good for the climate and others are not.
There is another point which was really, I think, a differentiator into our app. This is on the next slide. This is the challenge. So we had really quite some success with the challenge, unexpected at the beginning. Some challenge being very, very popular. Some of them, for example, the insect challenge being much less popular. But I think we were tapping into the gaming and the playfulness aspect of the app. So what can you say about the challenge, and why do you think actually they were so successful?
Yeah, I mean, I really love the challenges. So basically what we did once a month, we defined one challenge which our users could easily, fulfill. So for example, what you can see here on top was our plant-based milk challenge. So basically we asked our users to basically buy 2 different plant-based milk substitutes in the next month. And we partnered with sustainable brands because those sustainable brands basically provided us cashback vouchers, which we could then hand out to those users who successfully accomplished the challenge. So in this case, everything you had to do, you had to buy during a given month, maybe 1 soy milk and 1 oat milk, and obviously scan your receipt so that we could track it on your receipt. And if you did that, if you did so, the challenge was basically accomplished. And everyone who accomplished the challenge then received 4 vouchers for sustainable products. So these were, for example, 25% off or 25% cashback or 50% cashback vouchers, or in some cases even 100% cashback vouchers. And that was obviously interesting for the sustainable brands, like here on the right side, Rebel Meat, which is offering meat-based products that are basically organic products, but it's hybrid meat products. So it's 50% plant and 50% animal protein. And it was interesting for them to basically generate trials, but at the same time, it was a reward for our users to move into the right direction and basically take a challenge and try something out, whether maybe their muesli or their cornflakes also tastes great with plant-based milk. And during that month, we then typically send out like a weekly newsletter where in tiny little steps, we provided more background information about, why it's important to try to substitute some of our milk consumption with plant-based alternatives. And where we touched upon different topics like, what's the carbon perspective of milk consumption versus plant-based? What's the situation from an animal welfare perspective? What does it look like from a health perspective? What are the pros and cons? And this way we kind of really had, in these tiny little steps, the opportunity to educate our consumers in a fun, playful way. And this is also the great opportunity that you have as a retailer, because you as a retailer have the unique opportunity to engage with your consumers, with us, with your customers over the course of many quarters, many years, over a very long time. And you can use this opportunity to basically, pick us up wherever we are on our journey, and in tiny little steps that are right for us, take us along towards a more sustainable and healthier consumption. And these challenges can really play a very important role here for you. And they also provide a great opportunity to basically drive trials for your more sustainable products at the highly interested target group. You can even consider that as a revenue model where you kind of offer your brands the opportunity to basically pay for placements in those kind of challenges, as we did it with the consumer app. And yeah, that really worked very surprisingly well. And we were excited to see so many consumers and app users to engage with this.
Exactly, and then we always still targeted, so the vegetarian consumer would definitely not get a challenge about maybe shifting from conventional pork to organic pork. So it's also very important to always look at the value and the challenge, also the content, also the challenge was personalized to the users. Also, one thing that we did is really educate them again, as you say. So why is really oat milk better, and how much less emission has oat milk in comparison with the milk of the cow, etc. So it was, we had really some big success again with some very popular challenges like the oat milk or the water. So which buy some some ingredients which are very high on water, and other challenges where we ask people to switch to insect protein. Didn't work that well. So, but it's a good trial and error process.
I still don't understand why that challenge didn't work out that well. I mean, I really love those yeah, insect-based snacks.
Grasshoppers.
Yeah, the grasshoppers. I really love them, but yeah, maybe a bit too big stretch for most of our users to go that far to
But
eat
it's a good
insects.
way, trial and error process also to judge where your consumer are and how much are they ready also to try new products. Let's go to the next slide and talk about the idea that a lot of people think those consumer engagement strategy are only for vegan and vegetarian people. If Is that right? You know, can we slightly change, nudge people
Yeah,
towards
yeah, exactly.
a more sustainable
Yeah.
diet?
No, I think that was always something we had lots of discussions about in our early times, that, we want to be inclusive because, it doesn't really generate and drive a lot of impact if we, I don't know, manage to increase the share of vegans from 1% to 1.5%. I mean, it's impact, yes, sure, and it's important, but much more impact can be generated if we really target a much broader set of consumers. And it also includes people who, for example, eat a lot of animal-based protein and buy a lot of animal-based protein. So we definitely wanted to make sure that even for them, there's something in for them, that they have a benefit. So even if you, purchased meat every day and animal-based protein every day and had a very high product carbon footprint in comparison to the calories that you purchased, you still received a 50% bronze ticket, and you still could take certain challenges, like, for example, going for organic products or similar. So this is really important, that you stay inclusive and you really don't just target those who are anyway already very interested in sustainability, but that you really try to stay broad and try to even address these people who are still at the very, very beginning of their journey, because that's where the biggest impact is. And yeah, I think that was always an important part of our experience here.
Also, how did we help them? I mean, in order for someone who eats a lot of beef, I mean, this was the example now on the screen, we also used a little bit this sustainable product alternatives, right? This is what you see on the screen that we propose you. And this is something grocery retailers, maybe you can explain a bit further. How can grocery retailers use those sustainable alternatives to maybe engage also with their consumers? Is that an option?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a key benefit that you basically have, that instead of just telling your customers, oh, this ribeye steak has a huge impact, and leave them alone with that information, you can basically provide them or recommend them more climate-friendly alternatives. And that might be, in the first step, maybe just, why don't you go for the chicken instead of the ribeye steak? But obviously, it's also about recommending ultimately plant-based alternatives here, like a vegetarian butcher steak, for example, here. And yeah, this is kind of also an important functionality that we offer our grocery retail customers, that they can then really recommend more sustainable alternatives on their product detail pages in the online shop, in their apps, and that's also a very popular feature, obviously.
It's all about creating this tailor-made user journey. So they shouldn't be stuck anywhere. They should understand why any choice has a certain impact, and they should always find a way, maybe to, okay, maybe it's too high, then let's go for different options. That's amazing. The next slide is one of my favorites because it's actually the reason why we decided to move basically to B2B. And this is why, as you said, the retailers came to us. So it was very easy on the outside. I mean, people love to play with it. We heard about this. We still had quite some scanners until the end. But what was happening behind the curtain? How did we calculate?
Yeah, very good question. So initially we basically started working with category average data. So basically every butter had the same value, every vegetarian pizza had the same value. And that was kind of obviously very, very high level approach because we couldn't really differentiate between, products within the same category very well. And that kind of really, in combination with a lot of interest from grocery retailer, led, and also from brands, led to the situation that we realized, okay, that's can only be the beginning. We need to go much deeper. We need to be able to assess products at a much more granular way. And this is why we, during that pivot towards B2B, also decided to build up our own inoqo impact database, which is basically a very powerful database that includes data, country-specific emission data for 160 raw crops, so agricultural raw ingredients, and for all kind of animal-based products. So we have in total tens of thousands of data sets, and we can distinguish between, what's the product carbon footprint from cocoa from Cote d'Ivoire versus cocoa from Peru. And that now allows us to assess the impact of products in a much more granular way and really compare, the footprint of 10 different pizzas or 20 different pizzas and really guide you, and help you to understand which is the more sustainable option. But this also basically drives the impact insights, which we see here again, because, this is how we can then communicate to consumers also what's, for example, the benefit of organic products, like that, for example, the animal feed is GMO free, or is regional and not arising from South America, not imported from South America. So there's really lots of data that we can build or can now offer to you as a retailer based on that new approach. With our consumer app, obviously our consumers also had the opportunity to scan the QR, the barcode on the product right at the store, and that led them to that product detail page that you can also see on the left side, partially where you basically see the product carbon footprint, but where you can also learn more, and where you could also see alternatives. And you as a grocery retailer can do the same. You can integrate this capability into your own app. So you don't need another app, but you could just integrate that into your own grocery retail app, which then allows consumers to scan the barcode, send them to your product detail page within the app, where you can, in your own environment, show them, what's the product climate footprint, what are the implications, what's good about the product, what's not so good, what are more sustainable alternatives. And that's obviously also a very powerful element of this approach and this technology.
Because we saw the importance of having a pre-purchase service. So people wanted to know maybe before they buy, but also it was important after they purchase to see the impact of the entire shopping basket. So it was, I think, two different features that were really appreciated and used.
Yeah, and I think that's really also how our grocery retail customers think about it, right? So you really can build up the whole experience for pre-purchase, during purchase, but also post-purchase, and this is how you will generate the most impact. So pre-purchase is obviously like content that you share, challenges. Then during the purchasing process, make the data available within your online shop through your apps. And post-purchase, I think we will see one more example right away, right?
For the post-purchase, actually right now what I would like to show is going a little bit more in detail what retailers can do really with those data-driven consumer engagement strategies. So it's a little bit of recap, summary, and a bit more detailed view. So let's go for the first one.
Yeah, the first one,
go ahead.
positive feedback, so that we basically provide positive feedback on climate friendly, sustainable purchases. As mentioned earlier, don't point out when customers buy in a not very sustainable way, but rather really focus on praising them for whenever they're doing well. And I think that has been a key benefit of the app, or also why it got accepted so well, right?
And there is a way also to integrate this with the climate receipt. So how do they do that? Right? I think there's already some retailers who do that.
Yeah, so you can basically have multiple options as retailers. You can, for example, print onto your grocery receipt a praise where you say, "Hey, dear customer, very well done. This was a very climate-friendly purchase. By the way, your most climate-friendly product was, I don't know, the salad, and your most climate-intense product was your cheese." So you can actually print that onto the grocery receipt. If you work already with a digital app, you can obviously send a push notification whenever somebody shopped in a climate-friendly way and praise them and basically provide them with the same data. But on top of that, you can lead them onto this screen, which you see here on the left side, where they can then now check, all their products which they purchased and see how they contributed to that overall result. You can obviously also integrate it into your physical grocery receipt by printing a QR code that then, if you scan that, leads the customer to an app, your app, or a web app, which we would provide, where they would see that detailed assessment of their products. So that's how you basically can also do that integrated into retail environment.
Okay, let's look at the second one. That's what we talk about. I mean, we've seen until now mostly the inoqo app design, but obviously it can be designed in a very fancy way. You can create teams. You can really go very broad in terms of UX with challenge and gamification, right?
Yeah, I really like the teams as well. So basically, companies could join, could basically set up a team, and we then showed team-specific kind of statistics. You can do that for certain cities, or you can do it for certain stores, and then you have teams for every city that you operate in, or for every store that you sell. And then you can obviously use that also for some social nudging by comparing the purchasing behavior of users with other people who shop at that store. So there is two most powerful mechanisms to really trigger behavior change towards more sustainability. Is on the one hand, obviously, monetary incentive. So we address that through the vouchers and through the challenges, the rewards for the challenges. But the other very powerful lever is obviously like social comparison. And if you see that you are just a tiny little bit above the typically meat consumption of other people shopping at that store, that might trigger you to try to add a bit more plant-based options to your basket. And yeah, these were kind of the aspects that you could do here, and which we also recommend to you as a retailer to basically implement to help your customers to make progress on their journey.
Perfect. Next one. Okay. The alternative here, we have a screenshot of how it could look like on an e-commerce store, for example.
Exactly. Like here you can see that this shopper looks at one product, which, where there are more sustainable alternatives available. And these are then the options that you get recommended here below on that screen.
And then you have the score with different dimensions and the option. Okay. Next one. Next. Exactly. So the scan, we've seen this, that it's also very important to provide some option before purchase, how consumer can really already act before purchase to buy a sustainable product. So similar, right, Marcus, they would arrive on a PDP, on a product detail page of the retailer. And there, I mean, it's up to the retailer. They can add a lot of content. They can hide the content in different bar or tab. They can have info button. You remember, Marcus, we also had a lot of info button in the app. It doesn't have to jump at you, but it's good if it's available.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then the next one. Okay, content, we haven't touched base on this because for us, I guess we would make less use than food retailers. But how important are analytics, Marcus?
Yeah, I think that's really a key element that you can use in your customer experience to really show customers whenever they make progress. Like, in comparison to last month, the average product climate footprint per kilocalorie that you purchased from us decreased by 8%. Very well done. Go on like this, and you can basically reward customers with that. But you can also follow concepts like showing them to which extent their nutrition is in line with the planetary health diet. So how healthy and sustainable is their diet, which are the food categories where they might not eat enough from, what are the food categories where they have, are consuming more than what's recommended based on the diet. But you can also, through content here, really show them, last week, your purchasing behavior, which were the most sustainable, which were the least sustainable options, and then really provide them with content where you really deep dive into one topic at a time, and inform them about the pros and cons and about the opportunities. And this way, tiny little steps change behavior, and this is really the exciting opportunity. You don't need to really help your customers from one day to the other to all of them to go vegan, but you really kind of have the opportunity to move over a very long period of time in very small digestible steps with great outcomes in the long term, your consumers along, and thereby enabling them to help you to achieve your scope 3 emission goals much faster.
And this is where also team plays a very important role, because you have this then intrinsic motivation. It's not only about social comparison, but it can also be you have some user generated content. It all depends on how the app looks like, where people say, hey, I'm looking for a special bio spice. I don't know where to find it. And people help each other. So it also really makes sure that the users, they're staying in your shop, on your app, which at the end of the day always lead to more benefits and indirect revenues for the food retailers.
Yeah, and indirect revenues is a very good point.
No, the direct revenues, I mean, it converts into revenues, right? People are on your website, they consume content, they consume maybe the community's content, and at the end of the day, they might even buy something.
Yeah, but basically the business case behind doing that, and maybe that's also important to mention from a grocery retail perspective, it's not just about basically doing the right thing and reducing scope 3 emissions, which has a financial impact because more and more retailers are basically, taking up green bonds, where the interest rate of those green bonds is linked to them achieving their sustainability goals. But I think the beautiful thing about this is that consumers who know more about their choices will buy more and more vegan products and more organic products. And if you look at the shelf of a typical grocery retailer, you will typically find a very high share of private label brand products within those two categories. And these are also categories where the retailers typically have a higher margin on. So it's not only, the right thing to do, but it also at the same time helps you to basically shift your revenue mix towards those products where you have a higher margin on. And it also helps you to really attract that quickly growing audience of eco-conscious consumers, which actually, more than pays for for the effort and for the cost, and at the same time it helps you to achieve your sustainability goals. So it's really a win-win situation from both perspectives.
Exactly. So we touched base already on the last point, which I think also for marketing people is very important. Whenever you want to do a big marketing campaign on some new product, it's also something you can do is assess the impact of those products just to make sure that those products are sustainable, and then you can do really a super nice, well-crafted, powerful marketing campaign on those sustainable products. I think that's it. So we've been through the learnings. I don't see any question in the chat. So Markus, if you don't have any words to finish the webinar, I would just say goodbye and see you next time.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. It has been obviously a hard step to kind of, transition from B2C to B2B, and to kind of now decide to also give up our consumer app, as we are fully focusing on our B2B customers. But we are also equally excited about the opportunity that we have here to win millions of customers through our B2B customers, through the grocery retail customers, and thereby basically see much more impact much faster than we could ever received through a consumer app that you need to roll out country by country and do all the marketing by yourself. So we're very, very excited to continue this journey on the B2B side, and thank you for joining us today. And thanks, Hélène. It's been fun to go through
back
with you.
to memory lane.
Go back to memory lane, to the good old times, right?
Perfect.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.